Thanks for tuning in to the Black Rifle Coffee Network. This is the Medevac Podcast, powered by the Robert Irvine Foundation. I'm one of your hosts, David Reid.
And I'm your other host, Christian Meyers. Thank you guys very much for joining us today. Welcome to Season 2.
Season 2. We're so incredibly excited. Woo. After a, what do we got, six-week hiatus?
Yeah, like 6 weeks off. So for those of you who are not tracking on our social media, which if you're not, you should be. Head on over to our Instagram. That's our primary method of communication to our audience outside of the podcast. It's just at Medevac Podcast. You can interact with myself and Dave directly on there. You can shoot us a message, leave comments, whatever. But yeah, we took a 6-week break because we recorded for about a year and a half straight. We did about 70 episodes straight, which means we were recording every single week for about 18 months, which takes up a lot of time. You know, we're speaking to a lot of guests. We're trying to get, new guests on from all around the country. So it eats up a lot of our time.
We manage every single guest that comes in through the Medevac Podcast. Christian and I are going through their application and doing the pre-show interviews. Yeah. Very exciting. And we have some killer guests that are going to be coming on this season.
Yeah. We have some awesome guests lined up right now. We've already recorded with a few of them, so you'll be seeing some of those episodes come out here shortly. But what we're going to talk about now is all the big changes to the Medevac Podcast.
Huge changes this time.
Yeah.
Starting with...
We're legit now.
Too legit to quit.
No, unlegit. If you don't get that reference, figure it out.
Yes, Hot Rod, one of the best movies of all time.
Said you look shitty, Denise.
So, first and foremost, as you guys know, we are partnered with Black Rifle Coffee.
Yes.
We picked up another season with them, so we will be on all channels with them as well. As Christian mentioned, we need to emphasize the fact that if you guys want to reach out to us personally and get the latest and greatest updates from what's going on in the Medevac Podcast, including sneak peeks, behind the scenes, and all that good jazz, check out our page on Instagram.
Yes. Yeah, check out our Instagram, at Medevac Podcast.
At Medevac Podcast.
We have a Facebook too, but who uses Facebook these days? Just hit us there.
Yeah.
Easy to interact with. Who else are we sponsored by now?
Ooh, we got a good one. We got a really good sponsorship, and I'm incredibly excited to have them involved with us now. So the Robert Irvine Foundation.
Yeah.
Noticed the powered by. They are sponsoring us, and an excellent nonprofit. If you haven't gotten the opportunity to check them out, go to robertirvinefoundation.org, and you'll be able to check out some of the great programs and support that we provide to our military, first responders, and their families.
Yes.
Pretty incredible stuff. Are you excited?
Stoked. And we get awesome guests from the foundation, because foundation's involved with some really radical people throughout the country. So they saw the benefit to the Medevac Podcast, the stories that are being told in a positive light, and they wanted to help us continue that. So they'll be sending us some radical guests that we would not otherwise have the opportunity to have on. So keep an eye out for those in the future as well. And we'll also be partaking in the Robert Irvine Foundation events throughout the year, which means we'll be filming live Medevac podcasts, or maybe not all of them live, but some of them live.
Some of them
at the events.
We're going to be able to take this mobile.
Yeah, mobile.
which is going to be great. So if you guys haven't already seen the excellent new studio that we have, go to Instagram. We're going to be showing behind the scenes footage of it too. Yeah. The setup was great. Really excited for the opportunity to partner with Robert Irvine Foundation because of the really cool reconnection episodes that we're going to be able to really cultivate now.
Yeah. So last year, if you guys aren't familiar, you can go check out, forget the actual, I think it's episode 10. If I'm not mistaken. It's with Sean McMahon and Ezra Mays. So they were a rescuer and a rescuee. So a person who is injured, Ezra Mays, he was in a tank accident and lost a leg. And Sean was the Aeromed.
Tank accident. Craziness.
Yeah, an M1 Abrams split in half.
Yeah, the whole top slid off.
Yeah, the entire turret.
And crushed his body.
Yeah, he had to pull his own leg off. So if you want to hear some nitty-gritty details about a dude pulling his own leg off because he was pinned in a tank, it's pretty brutal. And then Sean was the medic on board his Aeromed evac. So they met on board while she was transloading him back to the States. And then they never were able to interact after that. So we reconnected them. It was a really, really powerful episode, some really powerful, profound moments. And we've been attempting to redo that. Again, it does take a whole lot of coordination and effort. So with the Robert Irvine Foundation, they stepped in and they offered to offer some assistance in these reconnection episodes. And that's going to be way more powerful and way more impactful this year.
Yeah, and it's all about resources. Last season, as we mentioned, it was just Christian and myself really pushing forward on all the guests. Now we have outstanding organization behind us. They're going to put these reconnection stories together in such a beautiful way, and we'll be able to get these out more throughout the year.
Yeah, get ready to cry a little bit.
Which brings me to the point of one of the new Robert Irvine Foundation programs that is coming out is, we're doing these reunions, if you will, of units.
Yes. Yeah.
So giving them the chance to kind of do that high school reunion feel, but for your
military unit.
Your military unit, which is incredible. And this is going to expose us to a lot more military members, not only in the nation, but all over the world.
Yeah. Can you talk about those reunions a little bit? So you guys are going to be taking from 2010 to 2020. If you were in this unit, like that group of people can all get together.
Exactly. Yeah. So we have a Marine reunion coming up here in a couple months. Our first one throughout the program at Robert Irvine Foundation, and we're bringing for the first time in I think a decade, bringing this unit together after going through some really excruciating moments overseas. They had a tremendous loss of life and difficulties with suicide.
Yeah, I mean, there was
throughout the course of the recovery.
Yeah, more lost to suicide in that unit than after. I mean, they were in the initial invasion, right? It was 2, 3, or.
We'll have to drop the information below when we push out the program. It's still a little hush hush, a little sneak peek for you guys.
Yeah,
which is exciting. So what's really great is in conjunction with the Foundation and Medevac Podcast, we're going out to these reunions and getting a chance to interview some of these heroes that aren't necessarily injured, but they've gone through the ringer for mental health.
Yeah, and able to reintegrate to society afterwards.
Yeah, and it's a big thing we touch on all the time, and really bring to light the injuries and the rescuees and kind of the negative sides of what's going on. And now we're gonna talk about those veterans who transition without any of those assets anymore, and they're just expected to kind of like reintegrate into society, which is a tough one.
Doesn't always happen as easily as it sounds.
It's never as easy as it sounds, is it?
Yeah, no. And I think a lot of our audience, I think a lot of you recognize that it is difficult to transition out of the military and reintegrate to civilian society. And, there's a lot of different expectations that you have. And there's a lot of personal responsibility that I don't think a lot of people are necessarily ready for, or they're not prepared for it necessarily. Like you get out like, oh, yeah, I no longer have full-time health insurance. I no longer have these assets at my disposal.
Yeah.
Things like that are difficult.
And what do you do? I mean, in the military, how long does it take to train someone to get into that job?
Yeah, I mean, between 6 months and a year for most general positions, upwards of 2.5 for specialized positions.
And then how long is that process to transition out of the military?
A day, yeah. You come up, and you're like, you're officially out. Good luck.
Yeah, and I remember that being one of the tougher things for me when I got out of the military, especially being injured, was no accountability anymore.
Yeah. I don't know where I need to be today. It's up to me to make that decision
or
now.
If I don't show up anywhere, is anyone going to notice? Yeah. And that's a lonely feeling.
Yeah, and it can quickly spiral into that. Does anyone care where I show up? And you can really go downhill.
So
negative thoughts like that.
Yeah. And military service has a tendency, and we talk about this all the time, of kind of a misconstrued identity attachment.
Yeah. Yeah.
Really associating your military service with who you are as a person, and that's the definition of you.
Yeah. And I mean, most all of us, especially in specialized communities, we're definitely guilty of that. I know I was, and that was a hard hit for like when I got out of the military. I'm like, oh, I'm no longer a part of rescue now.
Yeah.
This thing that I had wrapped up at my identity, that's who I was. I was somebody who did combat rescue. Yeah, that's who I am. Like, no, that's not necessarily who I am. Yeah. Because after I get out of the military, I no longer have that attachment. I no longer have that, that display. What do you do? What do you do from there? And it's totally up to you to figure that out. And that's
wrong. That's the wrong part is like,
yes. Yeah.
And that's what everybody feels is, like it's up to me to figure it out. But the biggest thing and what we're trying to showcase here in this podcast is like, oh my God, there is such a large support system around you at all times.
Yeah.
And all it takes is reaching out, taking that first step, initial step. And it is not weakness to say I need help or like, hey, listen, dude, like I have no idea how to do a resume.
Yeah. And to your point, it's not a weakness. In fact, it's a big sign of strength to turn around and ask for help and say, hey, I don't know how to do this.
Yeah.
I know you know how to do this. Can you assist me with that? I mean, and it comes down to personal responsibility too. I think that's something that not a lot of people talk about. And the realism behind it is it's really easy to get out and then just immediately start drinking yourself to death and focusing on things that don't matter, things that aren't beneficial for your life.
Yeah.
Because that's the easy route. It's what's easy. You don't have to put the work in. As soon as you get out of the military, you lose that identity and you lean into that. It's not a good feeling and it can quickly go downhill. So it takes a little bit of personal responsibility. You got to make those decisions for yourself. Okay, what am I doing today? What is my goal? What am I working towards? And taking those steps. So maintaining that responsibility that you learned in the military that you can't necessarily rely on your brotherhood anymore, quote unquote brotherhood.
And the way I describe it for the most part is it's not your identity. It is a tool set.
Yeah.
And if you're able to translate that and, put that suit up or put those tools up in the shed and you break them out when you need them.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely.
And we talk about this all the time with veterans who have hypervigilance and they're going into restaurants and they're looking for exits. A lot of people will come up to me and be like, I really need to get rid of that problem. I'm like, that's not a problem. That's awareness.
Yeah.
That's your ability. That's your training to understand. It's the emotions that are attached to that is the problem.
Yeah. Yeah. Those are false emotions.
Yeah. If you're feeling like you were overseas in a restaurant, with that anxiety and thinking an ambush is going to come, that's when we start seeing a problem here. So, being aware is a good thing, but also being aware of your emotions and your feelings, what's going on in your head. Are you able to be in the moment? Are you be able to be present?
Yeah, proper reactions for the situation at hand, right?
Yeah.
How many times have you been in a restaurant and a terrorist has run in there? 0 times for most people, right?
And the argument would be, it only takes once.
It only takes once. Sure. But keep that in the back of your head. Yeah. If you know where the exits are, good. Now stop thinking about it. Like you've identified them. Okay. Don't let that control the rest of your meal.
Yeah.
Right. Things like that. Take some logic into account with it. And you can help combat your emotions with that a little bit and push back against them, especially if they are misplaced or misguided like that. Like how many times have I actually been shot at in a restaurant? Not ever. So I'll know where the exits are. I'll sit down, continue my meal. And if something happens, I know how to react. Otherwise, continue with life as normal. And those types of things that's why Dave and I always hamper on therapy and speaking to somebody to learn these tool sets, because that's mostly what therapy is about at the end of the day, is learning how to control those things and how to live with them when they are reacting poorly or negatively or however. Like it helps you to understand how to guide yourself out of that mindset and away from those attachment emotions that are misplaced sometimes.
Absolutely. I think that it's a really huge part of this podcast to talk about mental health.
Yeah.
And I have to preface this with the comment that our audience, you guys, drive a lot of our conversations. And it always comes back to mental health.
Yeah, almost entirely. It's whether it's, can you talk about this subject, or, hey, this subject, this person that you guys had on opened my eyes or allowed me. We got a message just a couple weeks ago, a woman, it was, God, it must have been 10 paragraphs. It was a really long DM about how she was unable to interact with her husband. she's like, hey, I didn't know how to speak to my husband because I didn't necessarily understand the things that he was going through. I didn't understand his point of view because he, wasn't able to open up to me about it. And after hearing X guest on speak about whatever the topic was at the time, it's like that helped me understand exactly what my husband was going through. And it actually helped us open a dialogue. I was able to ask him the proper questions to get him to start opening up.
Yeah.
Like that's crazy.
That's exactly what this show's about. Yeah. Antonio Santana, same thing. Yeah. He, opened up a mental health facility based off of the conversations that we had on our first podcast, one of our very first episodes.
Yeah, I think he was guest 3 or 4.
Yeah. So if you haven't gotten a chance to check out his episode, he's doing some great things now. We're going to have him back on.
He'll be on
to talk about some of the great stuff he's doing. He's providing free therapy sessions for military first responders and their families.
Yes, and their families. And they have like a 2-day turnaround. So if you're not familiar, the VA right now, I know in the San Antonio area, it's between 90 and 120 days. So if you make a mental health appointment, if you don't need to be like fully committed, like if you're not in an active crisis, like a suicidal crisis or something like that, if you're just looking to get normal mental health or begin your mental health journey, 90 to 120 days before you can see a provider. That's a long time. Because by the time you're reaching out, most people, by the time they're reaching out, it's already getting to the point that it's causing distress and causing a multitude of other issues, whether it's with employment or family or whatever. Mm-hmm. They've got a 2-day turnaround with it's Frontline Strong is their organization. So if you need mental health resources, I know they've got quite a few available, and 2-day turnaround to speak to a provider, which is
phenomenal.
Yeah,
and
it's really
speaking of resources, another great opportunity for this new season at Medevac Podcast is that ability to create these resources for all of our listeners. So that's why it's so important for you guys to comment and reach out to us with any questions you might have. Even someone who needs help, reach out to us, and our job is to connect the dots.
Yeah, we'll take care of the rest.
and at this point, we've had over 70 guests.
Yeah, with a multitude of different outlets.
A wide range.
All over the place.
Of continuing service. Whether it's financial support, help with your VA packets.
Yeah, whether that's retirement or home loans or
counseling services.
Whatever it is. Yeah.
Mobility devices. We have our great friend Daniel Vargas.
Yeah.
Has Operation Triage, where if you just need something like a wheelchair or something, an accessible ramp for your house, whatever the case may be, we have these resources. So don't hesitate to reach out and give us something to talk about. Like if you have comments, we're going to be doing these Q&A sessions with Christian and myself. We will be announcing these on Instagram as well. Probably a week prior to when we're doing it, but we will be going live on the show with our guests and just sit down and answer questions.
Yeah, so if you guys want to interact with us directly while we're recording an episode, you can ask us questions live on the air, and then it will be pushed out later so you can hear your questions answered, and maybe it'll inspire some other people to talk about the things they're scared to talk about. Yeah,
and I think that we're going to be bringing back these special episodes a month too. We'll have these Q&As with you and myself.
Yep.
Scott Farber.
Yes, Dr. Scott.
Dr. Scott. We have an official doctor who comes on the show and kind of explains some of these intricate surgeries.
Yeah, we'll be having him on
medical
a little bit
processes and procedures.
Yeah, practices.
And of course, our good friend Dr. Crawford.
Yes, best facial hair of all time.
Yeah, the guy is a killer of a man. But we're very excited. I think that we have to touch on the mobility devices as well a little bit.
It's a big thing. Yeah. Please tell us more about mobility devices.
More, please.
Yes. These little tanks that we're given to.
Yeah. So there's
given out to folks.
There's 2 devices that we typically look at the Robert Irvine Foundation. One of which is the Freedom 6x6, which looks like a mini Striker. You've seen that thing. It's pretty crazy.
6 wheels on either side.
3 wheel. Yeah, it's a 6-wheeled beast. And what this does is this gives those who are mobily impaired, I suppose.
Paralyzed, otherwise.
Paralyzed, hip artics, missing dual legs, back issues, whatever the case may be, the ability to go off-road.
Yeah.
And to hunt.
Yeah, so if you want to go to the beach with your family and you're wondering why you've never seen a wheelchair at the beach, because it's impossible to get a wheelchair
Yeah.
through the sand, right? So if you are one of these people who's wheelchair bound, guess what? No more beach for you. That's it.
Jason Dabansky.
Yeah.
So we had Jason Dabansky on last season, and he'll be coming on again too after we awarded him this Mobius iBot
that guy.
Literally goes to eye level. This thing stands up 6 feet tall, so no more looking down.
Yeah. That's a big thing. And we'll touch on that more with his episode for sure. But
yeah,
if you guys aren't familiar, like if you're wheelchair bound, that means you're sitting at 3.5, 4 feet, and everyone you interact with looks down on you. So they physically look down to speak to you, and there is a subconscious reaction and an overt conscious reaction to that sometimes. It's really, really demeaning, or it can feel demeaning. It's not necessarily people are meaning that, but for the person who's wheelchair bound, that is a very real feeling that they can't escape. So being able to have a device that shifts you up to eye level where you can have a conversation one-on-one, face-to-face, like that.
Amazing stuff.
Yeah.
And on top of that, this thing drives through the sand, no issues.
Sand, dirt.
I think when I went to New Hampshire to test this thing out at Mobius iBot, they pretty much had the same setup that a vehicle, like the moving blocks and everything that this thing goes across at different heights. And the biggest thing goes up and down stairs.
Yeah, it's rad.
Up and down stairs.
Don't need somebody to drag you up and down the stairs anymore.
No.
You can do it all by yourself.
No. So that's an incredible opportunity to restore independence.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, just speaking to these guys after they go from, especially going from a non-powered wheelchair to one of these, I mean, that's going from like Stone Age to Space Age technology. I mean, if you're normally used to wheeling yourself around and now all of a sudden everything's powered, you can traverse up and down stairs by yourself. You can go through off-road terrains by yourself. The amount of freedom that imbues onto those individuals is phenomenal. I mean, it's
life-changing,
truly life-changing,
life-changing. And I think that's a thing that we really need to focus on in this nonprofit community. It's not about the glamour.
Yeah.
It's not about credit. It's about the true impact that we make on these heroes. Yeah. And are we making a difference in their life for the better? Yeah. And one of the reasons why I love the Robert Irvine Foundation is the ability to create a lifelong family member with anyone who comes in. It's not like, here's this, let's do a video, let's push it out.
Yeah.
It's no, you're a part of the family at the Robert Irvine Foundation now. You're incorporated with us. You have any issues moving forward, we'll take care of it.
Yeah, and that individual impact is much more important than the blanket. I don't want to call it wannabe impact, but we're going to take a group of 100 people out for a weekend of shooting, and then they go back home, and that's it. That's all they ever hear. Yeah, while those are good, those events and those organizations, fantastic to do, but it leaves people without anything on the back end of that.
It's masking a little bit, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
it's not solving issues.
If you're doing, and that's a great thing about these reunions that we're going to be doing, is, providing some sort of healthcare while they're there. It's not just about going and having a good time.
Yeah,
it's about breaking bread with the family that you've had in the past, rekindling those relationships, and talking through some of the burdens that you're facing nowadays.
Yeah, together.
Yeah. And what I really love about the military is that like really just abrasive humor and everything. You go there and it's just like, all right, I'm going to put my bulletproof vest on because I'm getting beat up here.
Yeah. Walk in like, all right, fuckers, here we go.
I know, that's exactly how it is. And in the world that we live in now, like, after being out of the military for such a long time, it's kind of interesting going back into that mentality. Like sometimes I go to the Center for the Intrepid to do some legs work, and a couple weeks ago I was sitting there, and this guy looks at me and he's like, "Hey, nice paper cut, brother." And I look down, he's got no legs at all, and I'm like, "Well, that's fair."
Like that would not have been my reaction 10 years ago.
Yeah,
but
I was like, "What'd you say, bitch?"
Yeah. God, soft my old age.
Yeah.
Huh?
Yeah, soft. Yeah, that's exactly it. Which is, something to be said is that we need a little bit of that. I think in this society is
Grit and realism.
Yeah, I think we forgot how to be ourselves during COVID or something.
Yeah, everyone got a little soft.
Everybody gets a little offended by everything, and it's just a joke, or like, don't get mad at me for an observation.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, your shirt is green. You can't get upset for me for saying your shirt's green when you're wearing a green shirt,
And it will happen still.
Yeah, it does. It does.
Yeah.
And I think that's what we're bringing back to the show too, is that real feel. You could tell from our new studio that we want it to be just that locker room style format where it's really comfortable, couch like conversation where you're just a third party viewer and you're just seeing this breakdown naturally and organically occur.
Yeah. And that I will say the new studio does a really good job of that. It's nice and nice and cozy in here.
If you can't tell,
yeah.
I was told though to not purchase black couches.
Yeah, specifically.
So I'll leave that one up to your imagination to
no comment.
decode that one.
Yeah. Anyways, moving on. So if you guys have been following along with us on our social platforms or anything like that, you will see that a few months ago, Dave and I made a trek down to Mexico.
Oh, speaking of incredible programs, I know where you're going with this.
Yeah. So back in October, and we haven't spoken about it until now because we wanted to do all the proper integration, really make sure we were able to speak on behalf of this and make sure that we fully understood what we were speaking about. So back in the first week of October, myself and Dave attended a retreat with the organization called VETS. It's Veterans Exploring Treatment Solutions. They are a nonprofit out of San Diego. It's founded by Marcus and Amber Capone. Marcus is a former Navy SEAL. Amber is his wife. And while he was getting out of the military, struggling with severe PTSD and associating mental health symptoms, he got the opportunity to try psychedelic medicine, which pretty much cured, like right off the bat, cured his issues. And I don't want to say like overtly cured, but it helped him work through those issues so much so to the point that they sought to start a nonprofit organization and go full throttle on taking combat veterans down to Mexico to also partake in these psychedelic medicines. So myself and Dave went down to Tijuana that first week of October. And Tijuana? I'm canceled now.
No, that's the proper pronunciation.
Canceled. So we went down there to partake in Ibogaine as well as 5-MeO-DMT ceremony. And this was specifically to combat PTSD, depression, and anxiety for myself. Those were the things that I was looking to work on because those are the things that I've struggled with in the past, especially after getting out of the military. I've only been out for, it's not even been 2 years for me yet. April 21 was when I got out, so barely coming up on 2 years. So I still had plenty to work on for myself, and I still do today, but I had tried pretty much everything else up to that point. I've been a guinea pig for the VA as well as a lot of alternative modalities in the past. I've tried everything from CBT and talk therapy to stellate ganglion blocks, which is a nerve block that goes into around your C2, C3, feeds into the amygdala to stop like the fight or flight response, right? So that was beneficial, but it didn't really help me in the way that I was looking for. Had tried transcranial magnetic stimulation and the hyperbaric chambers, all sorts of different modalities, and nothing really worked for me. So I wanted to give this a shot, and from like a personal aspect, this was hugely beneficial. So we wanted to talk to you guys a little bit today about our experiences down there, what exactly we went through, how it assisted us, and then the reintegration period after, which is arguably more important than the experience
90
itself.
days of reintegrating.
Yeah, arguably far more important than the actual 1 to 2 days that you'll be partaking in the medicines. It's the benefits afterwards that are huge.
And what's really incredible too is that the effect that it has after you go through this ceremony is 90 days. This had affects and redevelops the neuroplasticity in your brain. So you're reworking those neural pathways for 90 days after this.
Yeah.
So what's really incredible about this program and this procedure is that it was actually discovered to cure meth addiction.
It's for heroin addiction.
Heroin addiction.
Yeah, heroin addiction. Yeah. So it's
but any addiction
for that.
It's any addiction. Heroin specifically.
They utilize it for people like heroin addicts and methadone addicts.
Yeah,
primarily in Canada.
Yeah, methadone. That's the one I'm thinking of. So the methadone crisis in this country is absolutely ludicrous.
Yeah,
it's a scam. It's a big pharma scam.
Yeah,
to get people hooked on this stuff. Yeah. They don't even get the benefits of heroin anymore.
Yeah, my God.
And now, what is it per customer?
Yes, in Canada,
any pharmacy who provides this methadone per customer,
$6,000 a day.
$6,000 a day.
So in Canada, if you're a heroin addict and you want to get off heroin because you don't know what you're putting in your veins and you don't know where it's coming from, you can go to a pharmacy and say, "Hey, I'm a heroin addict. I would like methadone, please," and they'll give it to you for free. The pharmaceutical companies have a deal with the Canadian government that provides them every patient that goes into that clinic every day, $6,000 per patient per day. They are paid to that pharmacy to continue giving them methadone. So it's in their best interest.
It is more addictive than heroin itself.
Yeah, and far more detrimental to every other organ system within your body. It is terrible for you. And they're getting paid to do this. So they are perpetuating it. It is a financial incentive to keep people hooked on methadone. What the fuck? Crazy.
It is insane to me.
Yeah.
And what's great about this Ibogaine treatment is that it has a 60% first-time cure rate.
Yeah, for addictions.
For heroin addiction.
Yeah, which is otherwise impossible.
And how long is this procedure? 72 hours.
Yeah,
like
roughly.
Give or take.
Yeah.
Everybody experiences a different, but 72 hours and you're potentially cured. Maybe 2 treatments. Sometimes it's 2 treatments. There's a documentary.
Yeah, we'll have to get the name of the documentary.
We'll drop that on the description below.
Yeah.
But there's a documentary you guys should check out.
And it was actually with the guy who ran our clinic. So his name's Trevor. He runs a clinic out of Tijuana called Neurogenesis, where they offer both veterans. So they have a few different facilities down there in Tijuana. Some of them are for recovering addicts, and those are separated from the voluntary and the veteran clinics. So they do have specific veteran clinic that we attended. It's for special operations only, currently through vets. So if you're a former special operations member and you'd like to partake in it, you can apply through the vet's website. They'll help you get all that squared away. You'll go down to Mexico. And it's a 5-day-ish retreat down there. Totally worthwhile. And if it's something that you're looking into, we're going to tell you a little bit more information on that right now, actually. So
yeah, and that's as simple as that. Is we're the resource for you guys. If you're interested in it, drop us a comment, drop us a DM, whatever the case may be, an email. Our email's up there.
Yeah. Anyway, so first week of October, Dave and I went down that Monday. We arrived and it was a sweat lodge that we had to partake in initially, which is pretty challenging. If you've done the sauna before, you're like, "Oh yeah, that sounds cool." It's way harder.
Yeah, it's a classic sweat lodge.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, so you're in a cement igloo that is completely dark. So there's one little entrance you have to crawl in and out of that. They fill it with incredibly hot steam, and it's hotter than shit in there.
And 4 bouts of 15 minutes.
Yeah, you're chanting, really getting into the zone. So they're running you through these ancient chants that they've been doing for hundreds and hundreds of years in relation to these sweat lodges. There's all sorts of oils that they're putting into the steam there, and it's a really interesting experience. You will be locked in at like 10 minutes. You're going to be totally locked into your brain and like, holy shit, I need to get out of this thing.
Yeah.
But it's a challenge.
It is a challenge. And I really like the fact that this trip really strips away your social stigma a little bit.
Absolutely. It forces you.
Is like, hey, listen, if you're not used to giving sweaty hugs or, that brotherhood and sisterhood that you felt in the military, you get right back into that.
Yeah. And it's an uncomfortable feeling at first too.
Yeah. It's really odd that when you're exposed to different elements like this, you don't have time to think about what you look like or what your hair looks like or, any of that stuff. that is noisy.
Yeah.
Like there's so much noise going on in each and every one of our worlds, but we don't realize it. Those intrusive thoughts, that negative self-talk that you're constantly doing to yourself. How often are we comparing ourselves to others?
Yeah.
How often are we being beat down by worrying about what other people think about us? So in day one, you're introduced to 5 individuals that go through this program, all special operations, all have gone through similar experiences that and we break down those walls day one.
Yeah, immediately.
And it starts with the sweat lodge.
Yeah, and if you're not close with the people on the car ride there, you're close with them on the car ride back. I'll tell you that.
Oh
much.
man,
real
yeah,
quick.
Yeah, it's so funny. Like I remember sitting in the lobby waiting to get the bus down to Tijuana. And everybody's separated. And everybody knew, like, because all special operations do look, they have the look,
Everyone knows.
And you could just tell, like, everybody's just like in their zone, super nervous, like separated. We get in the van, same kind of thing. And then day one sweat lodge, everybody's brothers.
Yep. Yeah. Immediately. So after completing the sweat lodge, you go back for the evening. Every day you're getting a rehydration IV there with all your vitamins and minerals. So you're on top of your hydration. The food there, woo.
Gourmet chefs.
So you have 3 square meals. You have a three part meal every meal, 3 square meals a day. So you get 9 meals a day.
It's some of the best food I've ever had in my life.
It's like a 9 courses dish. Phenomenal food.
And
so
the
they're really taking
concept,
care of you there.
The concept behind this is they don't want you to stress about anything when you're there. The whole purpose is to take away all of those stress factors and just have you focus on recovery so you could really just sit down and focus on your mental health.
Yeah,
on
yourself.
What you need to integrate, what you need to overcome. And all the journey is just, it's just there for you. And I really, really appreciated about that. And I mean, you're not cleaning, you're not making your bed. As a matter of fact, they get mad at you if you make your bed.
Yeah, if you do anything for yourself while you're there, they're going to tell you, hey, cut it out. Stop thinking about other people. Think about you while you're here. And they'll take away your cell phone for a couple of days while you're going through the actual medicine, which is also hugely beneficial. While you're down there, they will force you to focus on yourself because so many of us, especially from a service-based community, focus on what about my family? What about my friends? What about my business? What about my job? What about my bills? What about my dog?
Yeah, it's a week for you.
Yeah, it is 5 days specifically for you because so many of us neglect to do that for ourselves. So the way that they force you into that mindset is really positive. But so that's the Monday. Tuesday, we do some breathing exercises. You'll do some yoga. You do some massages between there, and then everything's 5-star, top notch, very, very.
Yeah, they bring in like a yoga instructor to work through breathing exercises with you
for
like
grounding,
sound bowl, a little bit of yoga. And what's really cool about this program too is that it takes that like ceremonial spiritual feel and integrates it into a medical setting.
Yes. Yeah.
So, you have nurse providers on staff in a residential kind of cabin, if you will.
Yeah. It's kind of like it kind of looks like a halfway house-ish, like it's a
nice one.
Yeah, it's very, very nice. Pool in the backyard, barbecue, all that jazz. Everything's real fancy. But yeah, there's 2 paramedics there 24 hours a day. There's a nurse on staff 24 hours a day, and then there's an MD there throughout the day, every day. So
and a therapist
on site,
and those people who have gone through the program as well. So you have mentors, you have medical there while you're going through the procedure. They're monitoring weeks before, they're monitoring what medications you're taking so that there's no conflicting reactions that you have, because ibogaine is, you can't just pick this up off the street.
Can be dangerous. Yeah. So there are dangers associated with it. We won't go into that too much because it is a very case by case basis, but primarily if you're dealing with opioid addictions, there's negative interactions with opioids, and then SSRIs, they'll discuss, your medical providers will discuss that with you on an individual basis, but it's not something, if you just hear about it on this podcast, like, hey, I want to go try this, do not do that. We're not recommending that you go try it.
Do it the right way.
Do it the right way.
Go through vets.
Yeah.
Go through the proper channels.
Yes. Yeah. Go through.
And they will monitor you and make sure that you have a regimen and a taper off schedule before you go there.
Yeah. Yeah. So take that very seriously. We are not recommending that you search for it in alternative methodology at all. I would never recommend that because of how serious it is. And you think, like, if you guys have tried or dabbled in anything along these lines, whether it's for recreation or for medicine, it is not the same. I'll tell you that much.
No, it is not. And it's to be quite honest with you, it is a challenge. When you're going through this procedure, this ceremony, you're facing your demons.
Straight up.
You're facing your demons. You're facing your childhood trauma.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're facing all of the negative things that come back in your from your past. So you have to be willing. It takes tremendous courage to go through this program. And let me tell you what, for me personally, I knew that I was going to be facing my demons.
Yeah.
But I didn't know how drastically and for how long I was going to be doing it. That
Same.
3 months you're going through, you're having these vivid memories and dreams about your past. And, for me, when I went through this, and we'll dive into it a little bit deeper, was everything zoomed out for me. And I thought I was going in to overcome PTS, some of my issues there. And it was a small sliver, the 1% of my life. It was like, you're having these reactions for PTS because of all that unprocessed trauma in your past.
Yeah. That's a tremendous amount too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you're facing your demons. It's not enjoyable.
It's not.
You can't move. You're locked in. We'll get into that.
Yeah.
But you're locked in. You're hooked up to a EKG the entire time. And there's a nurse standing over you.
Yeah. But the entire time. And it is not a short experience, I'll tell you that.
No,
much.
you're locked in for about 20 hours. Locked in.
Yeah, more or less.
More or less.
So yeah, Tuesday, after you finish up your breathing exercises, Tuesday evening is when you begin the actual ibogaine. And this isn't for everyone. This is just our experience, right? So we want to give you guys just a generalized what you could expect if you go to partake. So Tuesday evening is when you begin the process. So ibogaine, it's just a root from the iboga plant, which is found in Africa. They weigh it out in comparison to your weight. So everyone gets an individualized dose based on your current height and weight. Then and there, your current hydration status, all that stuff's calculated into the amount that they give you. You take a series of 4 pills over about an hour and a half. It's just little veg capsules with the root inside, and then the experience begins.
Ooh.
And my God, let me tell you right now, if you think you're prepared, you're not. If you think you can prepare, you can't. So just go in with acceptance. Go in with an open mind.
Yeah. For those who have done a hero dose on shrooms
or LSD or whatever,
LSD, you ain't got nothing on this. There's nothing on it. There is nothing else like this in the world.
Yeah.
It is one of the most potent.
I think it is the most potent.
It is the most psychedelic. Minus from 5-MeO, right? So I like to look at the two factors here, and you do both there. Is one from the plant is the most powerful, and one from the animal is the most powerful. The Sonoran Desert Toad is 5-MeO.
Yeah.
So the plant and the animal provides this medicine that heals you more than anything else in this entire world.
Yeah.
And I was involved in the medical community. He was involved in the medical community. And to say that we have been shelving this for years.
I would call it an atrocity to humanity personally.
It is greed.
Yeah.
It is control and manipulation.
Yeah. And I could keep shitting on pharmaceutical companies all day long.
I will
about
too.
This.
Fuck you.
I could shit on them all day about this. They are doing more studies now, and they are actively pushing to legalize and open this up for more generalized use.
Stanford's doing studies.
Yeah, thank God. I'm so excited about that. Yeah.
And let's talk about that real quick. Let's talk about the difference this is making on a level where big pharma and medical companies are giving up on our patients, and they're trying alternative means.
Yeah.
And what happens? Let's talk about Stanford, and let's talk about this guy who can't.
You're talking about the paralyzed guy?
Oh, yeah. I'm talking about him.
So there's, Stanford's doing a study on a guy who had traumatic paralysis. So he had a traumatic fall that led to him being paralyzed. I believe it was from the sternum down. that kind of like nipple line down where a lot of paralyzed individuals have that. Anyways, he was paralyzed from a traumatic fall and dealt with that for about a year and a half. He was out with a buddy who basically force-fed him a handful of mushrooms, magic mushrooms or psilocybin, if you're unfamiliar. There are a lot of medical benefits to
mushrooms in general.
Yeah, mushrooms in general, whether it's psilocybin, the magic mushrooms, or reishi or lion's mane, or there's a lot of really good positive benefits. But anyways,
there's thousands of different mushrooms out there.
Yeah. Anyways, this guy, after a single dose of mushrooms, woke up the next day and surprise, his paralysis was beginning to fade. And over a course of, I think, 3 to 4 weeks, he gradually regained the ability to walk again and started going to PT, and now he can run full marathons. So going from being completely paralyzed from a traumatic event to having, this one-off experience that allowed him to regain and retake back his life. So Stanford's currently doing a study.
Stanford is doing the study. So this
on
is
him, as well as with 5-MeO. I know there's other studies going on there with 5-MeO DMT to reignite dead parts and dead tissue in the brain. So people who have TBI, people who have post-traumatic stress, Alzheimer's, there are dead sections in the brain, and after a single use and a 10 to 20 minute experience on 5-MeO DMT, they're seeing that, hey, these dead parts in the brain are completely active again after a single use. And they're seeing neural regeneration. They're seeing increased neuroplasticity for 90 to 120 days after every use, which means you're completely rewiring these dead neurons in your brain, or these dead nerves that are not speaking to each other. Huge positive medical benefits, zero interactions, and there's minor interactions, and there's almost zero negative side effects to these medicines. So I don't want to speak too much on the medical part there, because
it's natural.
It is natural, yeah. So it's isolated. They're both isolated from natural areas. So these aren't chemicals being produced in somebody's fucking bathtub, like half the shit that these people are addicted to right now that's killing them all.
Yeah,
these have positive medical benefits, and I'll tell you right now, if you're like, you're talking about psychedelics because it's fun, it ain't.
No,
it is not fun.
It's medicine.
There's zero recreational benefits.
It's medicine, and we can't stress this enough. Is that this is used in a medical setting? This is a ceremony. This is not something that you do on the weekends.
No, it's not something you want to do for fun.
This is something that you have to prepare your mind for. You have to do that meditation, do these breathing exercises. This whole trip will be not beneficial for you if you don't make those changes at home prior to going to this. You have to change your setting,
your environment,
change your narrative, and then go through this program and really take the time that you need for you. Yeah. This, as Christian mentioned, is a 5-day program, but really doubling that time to have that 5 to 7 days after to just really unplug, focus on that integration, and get back to it.
Yeah, absolutely.
One of the mistakes we made, and Christian, as you guys know, we have our own business, and I work with the foundation and have this podcast as well. So we're all constantly going, and we got back from this trip, took a weekend off, and dove right back into it.
Yeah,
and you don't realize how much you clear that negative energy out, and it's not you that's feeling that negative part anymore. It's the whole world. I remember walking into the airport.
The airport, yeah.
After this, and you're just like, you're just so connected after that, and you just you could feel the stress in the air.
Yeah, you walk in and it's palpable. You have a physical reaction to the negative energy that's in the airport, and everyone's upset. Delays and waiting in line and TSA, and you walk in and you're like, oh fuck.
Yeah,
I should have taken a couple days for myself prior to heading to the airport. But those are the types of things, like Dave's saying, you got to prepare yourself. You have to set yourself up for success. And the best way to do that is to set up your home life as best you can prior to partaking on this. Go and then come back, still apply those same thought processes for yourself. You got to take yourself into account. So set yourself up for success, make sure that there's some happiness back at home, and it's not just work and stress and negative energy again.
Absolutely.
But to dive in a little bit deeper, so Tuesday night, you do your Ibogaine, you take your pills, And it kind of kicks in. It starts with, so you head up to this isolated area. They had 5 mattresses kind of laid out across the floor where we had our own individual mattress. We had a mirror we could look at and a little maraca we're shaking to like get into the ceremonial aspect of it.
Yeah.
And the interaction and the medicine starts to kick in. So for me, my initial reaction was I felt a body euphoria, really heavy, and visual distortions, almost like I was looking underwater. So everything was a little bit shaky and fuzzy. And then the auditory hallucinations kicked in.
Those were wild. So I did
3-dimensional. Yeah.
I've never experienced that before.
Me either.
In any psilocybin use in the past or LSD.
Yeah.
It was straight like you and I were talking.
Yeah, so it is 3-dimensional auditory hallucinations. So the music that they're playing is traditional Bwiti music, which is the African people who use ibogaine in their traditional ceremonies. It's the worst music I've ever heard in my entire life.
It's unlike anything I've ever heard
but
before.
It is specifically made for use on ibogaine. So when you're listening to it while you're not on the medicine, it's incoherent and babbling and crazy and all over the place. But when you're on ibogaine, the music sounds so different, like it was made to be listened while you're on it. Go figure. Like, of course, they would figure this out. Anyways, at this point, you have a lot of disorientation. So you're completely disoriented. Your equilibrium's off. So if you
the
move
vestibular apparatus, is totally affected by ibogaine to the fact
massively
that you essentially have Parkinson's while on
this. Well, the ataxia happens. It happened for me a little bit after, as I was coming off it. I was very ataxic, but during, like, if you move your head a little bit too quickly, you're going to throw up.
You throw up.
Yeah. If you're trying to walk, you have to take very small steps.
It is very like no muscle control.
Yeah. Yes. You can walk to the bathroom, but somebody's going to carry you most of the way. It's going to take you 15 minutes to go pee or whatever. But anyways, so as these auditory hallucinations are starting to kick in, I'm getting a little bit more uncomfortable. I'm like, okay, what's happening here? So I lay down because I can't really sit up anymore. And they're playing this African tribal music. I close my eyes and I feel like I'm in this tribal ceremony. Like I can start to see the images, vivid images, as if my eyes are open and I'm at night in some sort of ancient Africa where I have these people surrounding me and there's a big fire roaring and they're doing their chants and singing and I can hear the drums and the beads going. And then the auditory hallucinations kick in a little bit more and I can hear children running around me. So I hear
the little slapping feet.
Yeah, going but around my body and I can hear it directionally. And I start to see them as the sounds come in. And what a wild experience to have. Like, I am physically transported to another space and time and somewhere else in time, but for real.
Yeah. And
it truly feels realistic. And that was a wild experience for that part.
Yeah, it's a totally wild one. Same start for me, and as you take the 4th dose of this, which is separated by an hour each, you get the 4th one, and I remember getting handed that, and I was just like, "Oh boy,
more! Yeah.
I don't know if I could take this right now, but like, fuck it,
I'm in."
So I take it, and then as you're chanting, and you're kind of sitting upright, and it's very very tribal feeling.
Yeah.
You got the maraca, and you're kind of just getting in the zone a little bit, and I can't stress this enough. It sounds a little hocus pocusy. But once you get there, it'll all make sense, and it's designed to put you in that flow state a little bit. So I'm sitting there, and they tell us that you're going to get these auditory hallucinations.
Yeah,
and I'm like, what? That can't be. Like it's got to sound weird, right? No, it was straight up
real.
Yeah, and I hear in my right ear, Davey, and then I just blast off into this this world where I like pretty much teleport into a room where it's a room I remember like as a child.
Yeah.
And I never had this memory before in my life, but boom, there I was in this room. And then I just start going through memories of the past. So Ibogaine's really interesting in that it allows your consciousness to engage with your subconsciousness.
Yeah.
So you truly get in touch with your body. Like, and it's not just you in control.
It's not.
That's the thing, is like that automatic system that you have going on, that's controlled by something primal, something different.
Yes.
And it is in charge. And
Yes,
it's odd to say, and I'm excited. Anyone who tries this, please reach out to us, because we're so curious to how these go.
Yes.
And it's such a controversial subject as well. It's hard to talk about.
Because some of the experiences aren't all that positive, right? Like, for me, my experience during was not positive. It was very, very difficult to navigate. It was very difficult to make it through to the end for me. Like I was falling apart near the end of mine. But it's a crucible. It's something you have to go through. It's like going through training, or it's going through something difficult to make it out on the other side.
You're facing your demons.
Yeah.
That is what you're doing.
Right up. Yeah.
You're facing the most horrendous parts that have ever happened in your life. And hey, like, we get it. Like, we talk to a lot of people about this.
Yeah.
And a lot of them say, I would never do it.
Fair.
And that is fair. You have to be ready for it. You have to be willing to make the change, and change takes work, and it's hard. It is hard to do. And man, I didn't realize how long the change was going to have to happen.
Yeah.
3 months.
Yeah.
3 months. And
it really takes that long.
Like, after about 3 weeks after that, that's when you really dive into the deep work.
Yeah.
And it really just redefines what your identity is all about. For me, I was able to spotlight a lot of attachment to my perceived identity, which wasn't the case.
Yeah, not who you really are.
I don't need to be loud and obnoxious in public to get attention, and realizing this kind of stuff, it helps you grow up a little bit.
Absolutely. Yeah. It definitely helps you grow up.
Yeah.
Yeah. It helps you become
it's that reset button.
Yeah. You get to that point where you're like, you sit down like, oh, okay. I realize the areas that I'm fucking up in. I'm realizing the areas that I'm neglecting for myself or for others. I realize, like, it cuts through the bullshit, especially the bullshit you tell yourself or the false perceptions you have. So to continue through with, I don't know, do you want to discuss your experience first? So you're kicking in, you hear the Davy, you're in a room.
Yeah, it was a crazy one. So a lot of these Ibogaine journeys, and they brief you on this too, is like, hey, most likely you're going to get a guide of some sort, whether it's a prominent figure in your life. It could be Abraham Lincoln, who knows?
Yeah. You can interact with them.
And you can and this is a medicine that you can interact with. That's the thing, is if you get, like, say for instance, my event, after being injured, been blown up in Afghanistan, I could say, I'm not ready for this yet, and they use the example from, like, Tinder is like swipe right or swipe left. And you could literally say, not right now, and move on to the next thing. Like I said, you have that engagement and that interaction with your subconscious, which is incredible. So for me, my guide was the future version of myself.
Oh.
I popped in and I was like, hey, I'm going to take you for a ride in the future.
Pop up.
And then,
sup, dog?
Yeah.
Oh, no. Future me sucks.
Yeah. But, and we started with, like, my life and going through, these, my childhood traumas and my military experience and all this stuff that I had an issue with. Then it zoomed out and was like, okay, let's go big picture. And then it started, like, at the dawn of time with humanity. And and I went through this, like, just adventure throughout the course of time. And it was just a very odd interaction, but like, I came out of it just feeling so connected to this world and kind of just a redefined ability to find that happiness again.
Yeah, and find purpose and find beauty.
Yeah, but redefine purpose is like, my purpose doesn't have to be that military experience that we talked about. It doesn't have to be, I used to be special operations. My purpose is to be here to be a good human being and to help others out through their adversities, as long as they treat me with respect as well.
Very much so.
Yeah.
So were you able to control your experience at all? Were you able to interact with your guide?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
I was able to interact with that, and I definitely had, it's weird too, is that you have these, like, generational memories as well.
Yeah.
And that's a really funny one to think about. Like, listen, guys, I was the first one to say, like, hey, the spiritual stuff,
bullshit.
It's all hocus pocus, And then when I went through this, it redefined my whole perception on it.
Yeah. And in order to gain that perception, though, you have to experience it for yourself. We can sit here and we can explain what it's like to go through this experience. It's not going to it captures 1% of what it's like. And the experience itself, while important and difficult to navigate sometimes and life-changing beyond all measure, it really only captures about 1% of the actual experience, like us explaining it.
Yeah.
There's so much going on subconsciously and behind the scenes to yourself that you don't see, but you feel.
Yes.
And it's an nondescript thing. I can't tell you what it feels like. I can't explain it to you. It's something you'd have to experience for yourself. But being able to interact with the medicine is weird, and that gives you a very altered perception of, okay, this isn't a drug. This is a medicine we do not understand. This is something far beyond what we've ever seen before.
Yeah. So you get field stripped right then and there with the Ibogaine.
Yeah.
And they give you the next day to recover. So you're going through about, I would say 16, 17 hours
most
of
people
being bedded down.
Yeah, so you're
not able to move.
Yeah.
They come in the morning, give you an IV, and let you hydrate, monitor you a little bit, and you get to go into your room and kind of hang out for the rest of the day. And integrate. You're not tired very much, but you're able to just, sit there in awe. And I'll never, ever forget the quiet that I felt in my head.
Yeah.
Like, there was no thoughts where it was just like stress in the future, no past issues that were coming up. It was just, I just remember laying there in silence and just being like, wow.
I could stare at a wall and just think about that wall that I'm staring at.
Yeah. and it was unlike anything else.
Yeah.
And then you have that day to recover. And then the next day.
Yeah. Tuesday night, you're going through, most people's last between 12 and 18 hours is what they say. Some people are able to, when they wake up in the morning, they can pop right up and they're good to go. And they can walk downstairs and get themselves breakfast. I had to be like carried down to my bed. And then my experience lasted significantly longer than 16 hours. Mine actually pushed into Thursday. So I was gone a significant amount of time. I
think for the most part, people feel it for about 72 hours, and
overall,
you were feeling pretty.
I was pretty locked in for about 50 to 60 hours. I was pretty locked into my experience, which is fairly abnormal. So for most people, they can expect that 12 to 18 hour time frame. My experience was quite a bit different. My guide only popped up once, and it was Matthew McConaughey. If you guys remember the old the Nintendo game Star Fox, whenever they pop up on the screen, it's like their little icon, their face, and he had this red sheen over him, and it was like Star Fox popped up, but it was Matthew McConaughey. He goes, "Hey brother, buckle in. This is going to be a bumpy fucking ride," with this Matthew McConaughey voice. That was my only interaction with him. My experience was a lot more difficult. It was straight up facing my demons, as it were. I don't want to go into too much detail because it's kind of wacky, and I don't want to turn anybody off to the experience. But it was definitely something that it forced me to face my demons, and it lasted for about 60 hours or so that I was completely locked in. Very, very difficult experience, but I'm glad that I faced it. I wasn't glad at first that I had to face it, but after some time to ruminate on it and to kind of think about it a little bit more, I'm definitely glad that I had that experience, because it did force me to kill that negative side and that dark part of me that I've always struggled with. It's something I've always had a problem with. It was very, exacerbated by my experiences in the military, and it's something that I wanted to fight, and I was able to because of that medicine. It helped me tremendously. And to fast forward a little bit, so that next day you're kind of sitting around all day. I was in and out of consciousness all of Wednesday. Thursday, everyone's a little bit tired, but they wake up and everyone's kind of feeling okay. I'll tell you this, most people are really nervous about the 5-MeO because you've just gone through and you've just tilled up all of the negative shit that's in your head, in your past.
Just plowed the field.
Yeah.
Is what you did.
Yeah. It's like,
and then it's like, let's do it again.
Yeah, and now let's go, wipe the slate clean. So that's more or less how they explain how this works. So the two interact with each other in a very positive way. The ibogaine digs up all that nasty soot and dirt and grossness that's in your head, and it just kind of sits there afterwards.
Yeah.
And if you do nothing with it, if you have to process it by yourself, it could be pretty difficult. But the 5-MeO, what it does is it comes in and it kind of wipes the slate clean afterwards. So now you're left with more or less a brand new person.
Yeah.
At the end of it. So we go in Thursday evening is when we begin the 5-MeO DMT experience. That one is just a little vaporizer pen that you take a hit from. It's nothing crazy. You inhale for about, 5 or 10 seconds.
10, 12 seconds. Yeah.
And by the time you're exhaling, you've completely left your body. That's
a wacky one.
An experience, I'll tell you that.
And this only typically lasts for anywhere from 10 to 30 minutes.
Yeah.
And so, but it is a complete dissociative.
Yeah.
In that you don't have perception of time at all.
Yeah.
And that's where that really wipes the slate clean. With my experience, I want to talk about it a little bit. In that I was able to realize how much pressure and how much burden I had on me for all the stories that I've heard in my life, and all the people that we've helped at the foundation, and whether it's our employees or whatever the case may be, is I held on to a lot more of that energy than I thought.
Yeah.
And when I took this, I just cried.
Yeah.
I just from the core,
screaming like baby cry.
Just cried and just let it all out, and you don't realize that 30 plus years of everybody telling me what a man is supposed to be and how tough you need to be and rub some dirt on it and just suck it up. And you do that and you bottle it somewhere.
Yeah.
And you don't realize where it was. And this 5-MeO was like, I'm going to uncork that for you.
Found it.
Yeah. And let's let it go.
Yeah.
And I just you just cry from the core. And I just remember waking up out of this and just feeling like 1,000 pounds had came off my chest.
Absolutely. I mean, that is the perfect way to describe it, is you feel a physical lightness to yourself afterwards. So for me, for this experience, and I had done it, I had done it once before, but this was a much different experience post ibogaine. So I walk in and, I take the little hit of the medicine. And for those of you who don't know, 5-MeO DMT is an endogenous chemical. Your body produces it. Most living things produce it. It's in your pituitary gland. And when you die, that's actually the chemical that's released. So when you get I saw the white light, or I saw my life flash before my eyes, saying that's what this is a flood of 5-MeO DMT. So you're actually replicating the experience of death. And we can get into the possible explanations of whatever it is, or my theories behind it, because I like to theorize about what it could be, but that's more for fun.
We'll save it for another day.
Yeah, we'll save that one. But lay down, and instantly you dissociate from your body. So the you that is controlling your body separates from your physical body, and you return to somewhere. I don't know. All I saw was bright light, and I could tell that my vision had opened up from my normal 170-ish degrees of vision to 360 degrees.
Yeah.
And I realized I had this feeling without a physical feeling, that I had a drop of water dropped back into a bucket, and I had become the water that was in the bucket then. I went from being me as the drop to everything, and that's what I felt, was this bliss and this acceptance of returning to the universe, or returning to whatever it is. And that comfort of oh shit, I think I just died. And that thought will cross your mind, and you're like, oh, well, maybe I did just die, but it doesn't matter. This feeling that I have now is so far beyond anything I've ever felt. And this comfort and this bliss and this peace and quiet
is what life's supposed to be all about.
Yeah, absolutely. So that was my experience. There wasn't seeing crazy things, or wasn't experiencing crazy things, other than this just calm acceptance of everything. And then you kind of you blink your eyes a little bit, and mine lasted about 40 minutes. But I blinked my eyes like I was waking up, and I woke up and I began to cry. Your body's still crying. So while you're gone, some people are, if you do decide to go do it, you might hear screams, and that's the body releasing negative energy. It's okay. The person's
It's
not.
called purging.
Yeah, it's a real thing.
And it is very, very true. You got a lot of toxins in your body, and you're trying to expel that. So I think in summary for this whole thing is that if you are trying to live in a life more of love and less in fear, this is how you do it.
Yeah.
The connectivity that you have, your interactions with people, interactions with your family, everything, it becomes better.
Because it puts it in perspective to the things that really matter, like all the things you're stressing about, the work and the bills and all this shit. Like that, it doesn't matter. That stuff does not matter.
And it's all made up for the most part.
Fake. Yeah.
All of your stress points are mostly made up.
Yeah.
Money doesn't exist.
Yeah.
That's just collective opinion.
Yeah.
The work that you're doing, at the end of the day, you're going to be on that deathbed, and work is not going to matter anymore. Yeah. So really having that perspective of reprioritizing your purpose in life, and that's to live and love and laugh and have a great, did I just quote the fucking wall poster?
You might
live, laugh, love, brother.
Lame.
So I think it's great. But listen, if you guys have more questions about this, please reach out to us. Hit us up on Instagram. Email us. It's both our name at medevacpodcast.com.
Yep.
So Christian, David, medevacpodcast.com. If you have any questions, shoot us an email. We're super pumped for this new season.
Yes.
And I'm thinking this is going to be the year we're going to make an impact for really giving a hand up to those who need it.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And really educating the public as well.
Yeah. And reconnection episodes. So excited about reconnection.
Heck yeah.
Yeah. I know we went a little bit over. Really good information today. Thanks for opening up, Dave.
Yeah. Thanks for opening up, Christian. Thanks, guys.
Yeah. All right, friends. This has been the Medevac Podcast. Just like Dave said, if you guys want to reach out to us, feel free to do so. We're always here for you. Thanks for watching, and make sure you share it with a friend or family member.
And
we appreciate that.
Hey, I just got to throw this at the end there, too. Check out the Robert Irvine Foundation.org. RIF, we like to call it, and that's the reference here on. But check out some of the programs they have.
Yep.
If you guys are interested, donate to the Robert Irvine Foundation. You're going to be hearing right here what we do with some of these funds.
Yeah.
And some of the impact we do. One of which, Jason Dubansky, is going to be coming up on his second episode.
Yep.
And he has his iBody. He's going to talk a little bit about that and the difference it makes in his life. So check out that episode when it comes up.
It's a big one.
Check out the foundation and support some of the stuff we do.
Absolutely. Thanks, friends. We'll see you next time.
See ya.
Bye.